answer lies in the heart of battle.
King of Iron Fist Tournament.
Mugen TV versus Corner.
Welcome to the stage of history retold.
Hey guys, MugenLord here, and I'm back again with another video. And today we're going to talk about Dissidia Final Fantasy NT. If you haven't heard the news, it looks like that Square Enix will be discontinuing the game as far as farther updating the game with new characters and costumes and balance patches. It looks like that Square Enix will be throwing the towel in on this game, and I can see the reasons for it, and we discussed this plenty of times on my YouTube channel about Dissidia Final Fantasy NT. The game had a lot of potential to be something awesome, not only for Final Fantasy fans, but also for the competitive community, especially those who love the whole esports genre of competitive games. And it looks like that Square Enix really didn't know what to do, and they pretty much mismanaged this game all the way through. So we're going to discuss this because in the article, which I'll post in the link in the description below, from Gamitsu and Push Square, they have stated that March 5th will be the final update for this game. Now, Dissidia Final Fantasy NT, in my opinion, I enjoyed the game, but I am not blind enough to the point where I won't acknowledge where this game had really made quite a few missteps, and we're going to dive right into the issues because I really wanted to make a video a long while ago, and I've been sitting on this talking about how Dissidia Final Fantasy NT can pretty much make a bounce back, how they can do better with the game if they take the Overwatch 2 approach. And because Overwatch is pretty much doing something a bit different than what you would do with an expansion pack, and how they approach, doing sequels for a current existing, titles, especially in the whole competitive esports type of genre. And I was going to do a video of how they can take that approach and make the game much better and make it much more accessible and appealing for not only the competitive scene, but also, for those who enjoyed the original traditional classic PSP version of Dissidia Final Fantasy NT. And it looks like I might not have to do the video now because it makes no sense, since they said there's no plans for a continuation or a sequel to Dissidia Final Fantasy NT. So I guess that's out the window. I may or may not do it. If you guys want to hear how they could have did it, let me know, and I may still work on that video. But as of right now, it looks like this is not happening. And the thing is about this game, like I said before, Square Enix had pretty much mishandled how they was going to pretty much release this game on consoles, because a lot of people tend to forget that Dissidia Final Fantasy NT was pretty much an arcade game, and it was only released in Japan. So when you're making an arcade game, especially a competitive game, you have to make it much more streamlined, and you have to make it more accessible for people to be able to jump in and be able to play right away. And there's a lot of fans that were going into this game expecting that same type of experience that they have from the original titles, which was on the PSP, where you had that one-on-one experience with a crap ton of customization options, from wearing different gear sets, wearing having different multiple different HP attacks. You had these cool dramatic cutscenes when performing special attacks and stuff like that, but you couldn't really have that in the arcade scene, especially if you're going for a 3v3. And a lot of players went into this expecting that same thing, but was quite disappointing. Now, the thing is, where I believe that fans would have been too disappointed with Dissidia NT is if they approached this, especially the single player aspect of the game, with much more care. And I think where they dropped the ball at with the console release of this game was that this game was very lacking in story. It was very lacking in customization as far as like single player and stuff, but the competitive aspect was completely fine. I enjoyed the 3v3 aspect, and the game balance was developed around the 3v3 aspect, and I enjoyed it because, one, I had my brothers, Keel Lantern and DX Strike, so we were able to get a team and go online and play against other players, and that was the main issues. There was really nothing much to do outside of just playing multiplayer, because the single player was pretty much multiplayer, but playing by yourself with little to nothing to do in the game. There was really nothing to do in the game, as you know, for a single player experience. And the thing is, they didn't spend no time. It seemed like the single player aspect was an afterthought, especially the story mode. You got all your Final Fantasy characters in one game, and you would like to see some of the interactions between the characters, the heroes and the villains, and how they act in this particular situation and everything. And they pretty much just give you a mediocre to uninteresting story plot, and you really didn't have the characters do much interaction or put them in situations to make, you know, to satisfy that fan service. And they dropped the ball with that. It was just an afterthought, just to have, you know, hey, we have a single player, so we can be able to put on, to justify the price that we have, to put on shelves for people to buy. And I think they went wrong about that. And to me, I really think that the team that decided to come up with this should have been fired, or it should have been scolded or something for that, because that was just, it was just embarrassing. It was just an embarrassment. And then second of all, and I think the most important issue that I also had with this game, and many others had with this game, because like I said, the game was fun on a, you know, on a competitive sense, and just especially once you have a human team, once you have your teams together and you play against other human players and they had, you know, their own organized team, the game can be a whole lot fun. Like I said before, in Dissidia NT online, I spent hours playing this game with my brothers, and you guys witnessed it on the stream. I would spend hours, and I would really enjoy that fast-paced, chaotic action that the game had to offer with my favorite Final Fantasy characters. But the biggest issue is, once you do get a sense to be able to get in online and play with other players, you have to deal with the netcode. The netcode was just horrible, and they decided to rely on peer-to-peer play instead of having servers or rollback netcode or whatever netcode that could suffice for this game. And it was just horrible. Matchmaking just sucked. Sometimes you find yourself just sitting there for hours looking for players, and then most of the time it wouldn't match you with any players. The next thing you know, you're just fighting bots constantly. And then they also keep pairing you with the same players over and over again. It was just, the matchmaking was horrible, the netcode was horrible, and once you did finally get a match that was like, that sufficed and it actually worked, you would have a good time with the game. You would really enjoy the game. But that was pretty much far few in between to even have that type of experience. So most of the time, if you wanted to get that experience, that ultimate rush for Dissidia Final Fantasy NT, you either had to find a group, which I joined the group, which was Dissidia Final Fantasy NT International on Facebook, where you was able to hook up with other players and set up skirmishes and lobbies and stuff like that. Or you join the Discord channel, which I was a member of, this Dissidia Final Fantasy Discord, which is nothing but good players there. I mean, me and my brothers get washed by most of the players there. But that's the only way that she was able to get that experience and experience the game at its fullest, is when you had to join these dedicated groups, because the matchmaking itself, and relying on the matchmaking itself, was just bad. It was just horrible. And you can see even the times on my streams where you sat there and watched me on stream, just sitting there with my brothers, just waiting for them to connect us with other players, and it just didn't work out. So that's where the Discord channel and the Facebook group came in handy, where we was able to hook up with other players and actually get some good sessions going on with Dissidia Final Fantasy NT. Not only that, is also the character selection choices. A lot of people were also upset with that, is because when they started out the game, they pretty much removed most of the cast from the first two titles, and then later made them DLC characters. So the thing is, a lot of players who are already fans of the PSP version, most of their characters weren't in the base roster. So a lot of people had no incentive to go out and play Dissidia NT until their favorite character pop up. And in the process of waiting on these characters, when they did the season passes, we had to wait, I guess, like, was it every 3 months for a new character to drop? And then the thing was, we didn't know what characters were going to make it into the roster. Was it going to be a new character that was never introduced to the Dissidia franchise, or was it going to be a returning character that should have been in the base roster? So there was a lot of disappointment in that regards as well. And and a lot of people were waiting on that favorite character. And every time they did release a character that was interesting, that's when the game got popular again for that moment. Everybody jumped online. It was easier to find matches again because everyone's favorite character, was there. And the thing was, Square Enix didn't keep up their momentum when it came to character selection and when they were going to release those characters. So after season 1 was pretty much done, they decided with the next season that, hey, we're not going to do a season pass this time. What we're going to do is we're going to make the game free to play. And that's what they wanted to do. And I said this before and in plenty of other videos that the game should go free to play, because I figured that, hey, that this game was going to drive up, the player base. You're going to find more players online, and they also should put it on the PC as well on Steam. And they did that. And I figured that, hey, I even did a video talking about it. I said, yo, this is the best thing they could ever do in order to create more interest and breathe life into this game that's somewhat dying, because it's the Japanese community that was really keeping this game alive, and I'll get into that in a second. But the thing was, they mismanaged and mishandled the PC version. The PC version, from a lot of players, said it was just like the game constantly lagged. There was a lot of frame rate issues because the game wasn't optimized well. Because people even said that, hey, I got a high-powered PC rig. Why can't my PC handle this game? It's not much to this game. Why can't my PC handle this game? So they even mismanaged the PC version. It's like they didn't care for the game at all. It's like they just seen this as another avenue just to make money and just say, you know what, hell with the fans, and the PC version should have been that version to get everybody on board. Making it free to play should have been the thing to get everybody to at least give the game a try, because when it comes to free to play, you have nothing to lose but your time. You can get into it, you're not paying any money, and they cycled the heroes. I believe every week they cycle the 5 from the different classes, so you get a chance to try out the characters, and you can purchase the characters individually, or you can buy them all to, buy the whole package together. So they had something going with this, and they even dropped the ball with the free-to-play model and also the PC version. I just don't understand why. And then they didn't even make it cross-play with the PlayStation 4 version. They were their own separate community, so they didn't even cross-play it in order to pretty much open the range and the scope of how many players you can be able to come in contact with online. So that didn't help out. And even with the little patches that they did to fix certain issues, it still wasn't enough to keep the game going strong at all, and I think the game was poorly advertised. They didn't strongly advertise to let players know that, hey, this is different from the original Dissidia games found on the PSP. This is a totally different approach. We're going more competitive with it. They didn't really put it out there to the mainstream. It was more so they was advertising this to the competitive community that, hey, we're trying to go esports with this, but they had no plans. They had no type of backup plan. They had no long-term goal. They had no idea how to approach this on an esport level, a competitive level, or anything of that sort. They just went in and just threw darts at the wall, hoping to hit a target, and quite disappointingly, they missed. They really missed the mark on this game. And it's Final Fantasy. You have Nintendo, which has Smash Brothers with all their iconic properties. Now you take that but use Final Fantasy characters. This game should have been a success. This game should have hit the ground running with everybody. Maybe grab new Final Fantasy fans who never knew anything about the Final Fantasy property at all, and they seriously dropped the ball with this. And how's it that Dissidia Final Fantasy, was it Opera? How did that mobile app seem a little bit more faithful to the Dissidia Final Fantasy name? It seemed like that the mobile phone and the mobile game itself is doing a whole lot better and did a whole lot better and much more successful than the console version of Dissidia Final Fantasy NT. I don't understand. And last but not least, it seemed like, as far as the Japanese audience is concerned, that the Japanese were the ones that's been really keeping the game alive. And what I didn't like about it is that every time we did get updates, they only had live streams that was only dedicated to the Japanese audience. So the fans who are from Europe or the United States or Australia, Canada, or whatever, that we were pretty much left in the dark until they put out patch notes, or if we we had some Japanese players who also speak English who are also part of, you know, the Discord, the Facebook group, who would translate it for us. And then you had YouTubers like True Blade Seeker, who's also a really cool YouTuber. I call him the Maximilian of Dissidia Final Fantasy. Like, his channel is really good when it comes to like Square Enix stuff, and mainly Dissidia Final Fantasy. You need to go check out his channel. But I'll have to go to his channel so he can do a breakdown of what's going on, because they kept everybody else in the dark. They only released update streams, live streams for the game only to their Japanese audience, and left everybody else who still was supporting the game in the dark. We had to wait until somebody translate a lot of these notes to let us know what's coming to the game, what's in store for us and everything. And I just thought that was just like disrespectful to the fan base altogether. It seemed like they just did not care about this game at all going into this console version, and I'm just extremely disappointed. And now we're not getting a sequel. And does it mean it's doom and gloom for Dissidia Final Fantasy as a franchise altogether? I don't think so. But will we see anything from this franchise? Not in a very long time. When the PSP version, the first one, dropped, it made 1.8 million, but then it dropped to 9.8 million when Duodecimo came out, which was the sequel to the PSP, and then it dropped to 400,000 copies sold for the PS4. So there was already a steady decline for the franchise as it is, and at this point, there's really no incentive to continue on with Dissidia Final Fantasy until they figure out what they're going to do with the franchise moving forward. And I don't blame them. I would want them to sit back and really think about what they're going to do. We do have next gen coming up, and I think it's a good, to me, in my opinion, to bring it back for next gen with new visuals, but this time put some actual care into the game. And at this point, I mean, Square Enix does have a lot on their plate. The Final Fantasy VII Remake, a potential Final Fantasy 16 is in the works. So, I mean, there's really no incentive to do Dissidia at this point where they have other big projects in the works. So, we'll be waiting for a very long time. And in my opinion, I don't even think they should do like a Dissidia. They should just do a Square Enix type of game that's in the realm of Dissidia, where it plays like Dissidia but with different Square Enix characters. I think that would be much more interesting, because you can cover games like Nier Automata, Final Fantasy, maybe Xenogears, Star Ocean, Secret of Mana. I think that'll definitely work even more, because you're not just in Dragon Quest, you're not just stuck to just that franchise. You can just broaden your scope and make more people aware of different franchises and brands as well. So I may even make that into another video talking about that and a potential crossover game like that, because Square has iconic characters. They have iconic franchises that they can pull off their own type of arena fighter or arena brawler or like a Smash Brothers type of game, but with their Square Enix properties. But that's pretty much my thoughts on this whole thing. It's sad that this had to happen, but hey, that's what happens when, you know, a company doesn't really put that much effort or care into a franchise that's been so held to high standards from its community that always been there supporting that game, you know. So I definitely want to hear your thoughts. Have you always been a fan of Dissidia Final Fantasy? And if so, which Dissidia Final Fantasy have you started out with that got your interest in this franchise? And if they were to do a sequel or to reboot this franchise, how would you think Square Enix should approach this? I definitely want to hear your thoughts. If you like the video, pass it, share it. It would definitely help your algorithm. Leave some comments, because I definitely want to hear your thoughts and opinions on this. And if you want to hear more news related to Final Fantasy or Dissidia Final Fantasy NT in general, hit that bell to be notified. This is MugenLord signing off. See you Game Fiends later. Peace out. It looks like you reached the end of the video. Well, while you're at it, check out some of my other discussion videos by clicking on the annotations below, and don't forget to follow me on other social media platforms to stay up to date with future content. Signing off.